he was the TV host.
Lift the Cup.
The Sunday, for
Lift the Cup
the
on a
championship
Sunday night.
wrestling. I don't know if he was actually at the auditorium.
I remember him.
He did it in the
I
studio.
remember Jimmy Steele, yeah.
Yeah, he did that on Sunday. It was funny because he was a serious sportscaster during the week,
Right.
and then he would do like a fake sport show on Sunday. It was kind of funny.
You know, and when I was at LSU, when I was playing up there, Greg Fox.
Yeah, I
was
remember
good.
him. Yeah.
And I told people he comes to New Orleans and he wasn't as good anymore.
Oh, he was in Baton Rouge?
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to do a college football preview for you. We got two guys that can really break it down. We're talking LSU, Tulane, all the Louisiana schools. Glenn Guilbeau of Gannett News is one of our guests, along with Renee Nato of WHNO TV and also SportsNola.com. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for your time, as always. Certainly appreciate it. We always like to start off letting the folks know a little bit about the publications you guys are involved in, whether it's radio, TV, internet, or newspaper. If you start off with us, Renee, let us know a little bit about what's going on in your professional life.
Color analyst, college football on ESPN, Fox, ASN Network, also CST. Work for CBS Radio and WFN for sporting events in New Orleans, write for Sports NOLA, and host a recruiting TV show with Rick Gailey. And I guess that's about it.
Yeah, so far.
That's quite a bit.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think.
Busy guy. You're a busy guy as well, Glenn. Tell us a little bit about Gannett News.
Covering LSU, of course, and the Saints for Gannett, Louisiana newspapers, but we're calling ourselves the USA Today Network now.
USA Today Network.
Right.
We will
right,
make that change. USA Today Network.
Okay.
And of course, as part of that, we can find a lot of your stuff on the Channel 4 website as well, right?
Right, WWL TV website and also the USAtoday.com website. NCAA football spanning the SEC is where a lot of my work is, or the advertiser.com, the Lafayette website, just getting ready for the Tigers, which should be a great season.
Yep, should be. We're going to talk a lot about that. Well, as I mentioned, we'll talk Tulane. We'll also talk to other Louisiana schools, and we hope to get at least an overview of the Southeastern Conference as well. Let's start off. The biggest question mark this year for the LSU Tigers is at the quarterback position. Renee, I'll start with you first. Brandon Harris, third year at LSU. Danny Etling, after sitting out, is going to vie for the job. What are your thoughts on that quarterback position? Whose job is it? And ultimately, what do you think about the competition going forward?
Well, you know, Brandon Harris, what he did in the spring, you would think he's going through the maturation process. Last year really was his first year, really his first year. He makes a big jump from his sophomore year, his junior year. It was really his first year. So he should make a good jump from there. I saw some things, heard some things from the players that he's done some things well. You know, and the thing is, he's got so many weapons around him. Having Ethan Posick back, for example, that is huge. That is a huge part of the offensive line. The weapons he has at wide receiver. Of course, Leonard Fournette in the backfield. And also, the defense is going to be a tremendous help to him. Having Dave Aranda and the potential of a very highly regarded defense, a lot of people came back. They could have left for the NFL. That is going to also be a big benefit to the offense and Brandon Harris. The defense could be a shot in the arm.
Right. Glenn, what's your thoughts on Brandon Harris? Then I want to get to Danny Etling as well.
Well, I think Brandon Harris, last year he showed signs of being really good, but then he was inconsistent. You know, he was up and down. But I do think people forget, you know, his two games against Ole Miss and Arkansas late last season were very good. Now, he ended up kind of weakly against Texas A&M, but he threw for 320-something yards against Ole Miss. It was a loss, but an LSU quarterback throwing for that many yards, and he threw 30 times in that game, that's rare. I don't care what the score is. And he also played pretty well against Arkansas. So he had some moments, and people at LSU, the fans and the media, they have quarterback on the brain so much that they don't realize that, and they also don't realize that that defense by the end of the year last year was bad. Their total numbers last season in the key stats like total defense and pass defense, what have you, were the worst since the 2008 season, which was when they fired Doug Mallory. And then brought in John Chavis. So I think that the biggest off-season acquisition was Dave Aranda, and they kept Kendall Beckwith and Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White could have been a first-rounder, Kendall Beckwith maybe a third-rounder. You know, that's really going to help the defense. I think Aranda is going to be a great fit, so that will all help Harris develop because he doesn't have to be great. He just got to be decent, and then they could really go.
Is there a real competition there with Etling at this point, the Purdue transfer?
Not really. You know, he could be a stopgap kind of guy. If he had to fill in for maybe a couple of quarters or a little more, depending who the competition was, I think it would be a good fit. I mean, a good situation. But if he had to take over a period of time, 4 or 5 games, it could be you could get different results. Don't know if Lindsey Scott would get any reps, the freshman. But I don't think Danny Etling would be an answer if, for some reason, something happened to Brandon Harris over a long period of time. He could manage things, but he doesn't have the physical skills that Brandon Harris possesses.
And when you say physical skills, you're talking about the athleticism?
Athleticism.
Because he's got an arm, right?
He's got an arm, and he's got a good head on his shoulders.
Right.
He could stay within his capabilities. But I don't think the throws and some of the things that he could do, he doesn't have the mobility that a Brandon Harris has. So it would be a little bit of a step back, if you would, if he were going to run the team for a period of time.
What can you add, Glenn?
Well, you got to remember Danny Etling lost the starting job on a team that was 2-10. Okay, he doesn't have that great of a statistical background at Purdue, or is it Purdue or Indiana? Purdue, right? Same state. Right. But
Drew Brees really doesn't like you saying that.
That's right. I'm sorry, Drew. Hopefully he could be as good as Drew. That would be nice. But no, I think the thing about Etling is I think they like him better than Anthony Jennings. Okay, so if Harris messes up or needs a break or just needs to be sat down for whatever reason, I think they like that option of having Etling to maybe push Harris or if they need him to use him, where they weren't ready to play Jennings again. They had kind of closed the book on him, and he's transferred. But as far as Etling really competing for the starting job, I don't see that happening until the season starts. Then if the season starts and Harris just starts messing up, then it could happen.
So guys, listening to you guys talk right now, I think a lot of Tiger fans felt that Etling may be a guy that could give them some really quality depth and be a guy that could step in and maybe challenge for the starting.
I think that was just
but
wishful.
That's wishful thinking, right?
Wishful thinking. He's a stopgap guy.
And well, that said, we all want to see Brandon Harris mature. He's had to mature under fire. Can he be a game manager? What do you foresee for this guy this year? You know, he's been in the program now. He was an early entry, 3 years in the program now. You would think right now he's ready to take the next step as a junior quarterback.
You know, I've said on this show, and it's never really come to fruition, when I first saw him in high school, I did a lot of West Virginia games, and the first person that came to mind was Geno Smith. His delivery, over the top, similar size, similar skills, had same type arm, very, very similar type arm. Now, was it coaching? Was it something that they couldn't connect? But could he be that? And I'm talking about the West Virginia Geno Smith, not the Jets. But, you know, he's got more skill than people think. And he could be a good quarterback. Could he be a great quarterback? Don't know if he could lead the SEC. But he could be a guy that could certainly, as Glenn mentioned, you know, he doesn't have to do anything great. He doesn't have to throw for 450 yards.
Is game manager an accurate assessment of what he has to be?
Well, I think they need to get good game management from their coaches first.
Yeah.
Okay.
They haven't had that. They need better game management from Cam Cameron and Les Miles. But no, I don't think quite yet can they say, oh, Brand Harris is going to be the game manager. I don't know if you have many game managers really in college football. I mean, there's been some great teams that have won a lot of games with quarterbacks who are just kind of doing what they're told and playing okay, you know, at Alabama a lot. So I think that might be the thing. Just better coaching from Cam Cameron. Hopefully he'll be on the field this year. I thought they'd have done that when he first got the job. But you know, Harris just needs to be better at his accuracy on the short passes, particularly. They need to give him a better playbook as far as throwing to Fournette more, throwing to Darius Geis. You know, and that would be an easy way.
What about getting him out of the pocket, guys?
Getting him out of the pocket every now and then would help too.
And the thing is too, no matter what, when you face an Alabama defense, play against Florida, and Florida's going to be much improved, and Auburn and some of these teams, you're going to have to make plays. Managing the team is basically handing off to Fournette and stuff. You're going to have to make a big-time throw to Malachi Dupree or Traven Durrell or somebody like that, or make a play that makes a difference in a game 2 or 3 times. So managing a game is a guy that he doesn't show up on, he's a blip on the screen. So he's going to have to make some plays to carry this, or help carry this team.
And that's why I brought up that Les and Cameron need to manage the game better, because the Alabama game, I can tell you, some of the coaches wanted to get Les to try to do some different things, but he wanted to go right at Alabama, which worked in 2011, and it's worked in some other years. But if you remember Alabama's front seven last year, it's probably the best Nick's ever had anywhere. And you couldn't have gone just straight up against them, and they needed a more balanced game plan, spread out, finesse, but Les didn't want to do it. They got to get better at that this season.
Well, that leads me to my next question. You mentioned Cameron, who was on the hot seat with Les Miles this past offseason. Both guys survive. There's always, it seems like there's been at least conversation, whispers that, you know, it may be Cameron's offense, but the buck stops with Les Miles. How much autonomy will Cameron have? Will he open it? Look, they've got some great athletes on that offense. Will they open it up a little bit, or is it going to be three yards in a cloud of Fournette going forward?
Well, I think Cameron has, the Alabama game last year was not a good example, but I think for most of the time, Cameron does have some autonomy. I mean, let's not forget, Cameron was running the offense with Zach Mettenberger in 2013, and that was a great passing game, a great offense, very well balanced.
But they trusted Zach.
Yeah, they did, and you know, he was better than anybody they've had since Jamarcus Russell, really, and. You know, so can Harris be as good as Mettenberger was in 2013? I don't think so, but he could get somewhere near that, and I think he needs some help. But it would be good to let Cameron have some autonomy. I think it was good that they kept Cameron for Brandon Harris's sake, just for his development, for the carryover effect. Though I don't think Cameron has done nearly as good a job as I thought he would.
Right. Your thoughts on Cameron?
Well, and something else. I'm going to go back to what I first said. You know, Alabama game that Glenn mentioned, Alabama ran roughshod over LSU defense. The fact that Dave Aranda is coming in and is going to have a different scheme, and he's got players that are better, that could be playing on Sundays now, is going to make it easier and better for the offense. And the thing is that, first of all, LSU won't have to score as many points. They may get the ball back on the plus 50 side of the field, or the opponents. So there's things that's going to happen on this defense because of the approach. I mean, throwing names out, Arden Key is going to be a heck of a player, much better than last year. They're going to have so many weapons on defense, players that the offense has to scheme against, the Kendall Beckwith and things like that, that it's going to make Brandon Harris's job a little easier. The defense is going to be doing that for the offense.
And Alabama's not going to be as good.
Right.
You led me there. I'll come back to the offense in a moment. Let's talk about the defense, because, again, that is one of the new facets of this year's team. 3-4 defensive scheme. Aranda comes in with, again, accolades about what he's been able to do in his career so far. I guess the first question is, do they have the players to play the scheme?
Yeah, and I would tell you what, too. You know, the thing is that when you're in a 3-4, and I can foresee Dave Aranda doing this, and Glenn may know more about this than him. He may have talked to him a lot more than I have. But the thing is that I can foresee Dave Aranda showing, you know, 5 men on the line and maybe showing blitz. And all you want to do is confuse the offensive line. That's all you really want to do. Get them thinking. You may show 5 and shoot 3 or something like that. And Dave Aranda is going to, he's going to, you know, a little smoke and mirrors kind of thing, deception, if you will. And he's also got the athletes. But the thing is that with that 3-4, it allows you some deceptive moves and kind of confusion on the offense. And I think that's going to be a big plus. Plus, I think they have better athletes. The athletes they had last year are much improved. But to answer your question, it's going to be a good fit for LSU, but boy, they learn athletically.
Right. Well, Glenn, why don't you take it and kind of break it down? I mean, the scheme, Aranda coming in, and do they have the players to fit the scheme?
Well, that's the key. I don't think Aranda is so much involved with making his players fit the scheme as he is making the scheme fit the players.
Okay, so it may not be a pure 3-4?
No, they're going to mix in some 4-3.
Okay.
You're going to see more 3-4 than you used to seeing, but
Right.
but he's more about finding his scheme to fit the players than Kevin Steele was, which was the other way around. And really, Aranda will make improvement in this regard if he can get them lined up right before the snap, because Steele had a lot of trouble with that, and actually so did Coach Chavis early in his last season in 2014. So Aranda, I just think he was a breath of fresh air for him. He's much younger, and he went through that spring, and I think he knows what he has, and it really helped him that he kept Beckwith and White. And I think you're going to see the defense play better than it has in quite a few years.
Break down that defensive line for us.
I'm going to tell you, I can foresee LSU in some situations line up 2 down linemen.
Yeah, he's done that a lot.
And you're going to have 6 guys, and you don't know where the heck they're coming from.
And those 6 guys he uses are going to be faster and more athletic than any other
and
place
you may
he's been
have,
at.
and you could line up 6 guys close to the line in the box, and all of a sudden you got those offensive linemen looking both ways where they're coming from. And again, if we're at left guard and left tackle, and there's confusion or hesitation, you got a blitz.
Right.
And you could have 6 guys, again, it's a little deception, and you shoot a safety blitz through the A-gap, Jamal Adams or something like that. And I think he's going to do things like this. Not only is he going to use some deception, he's got skilled, excellent athletes that can, I mean...
Except at nose guard. Devon Gottschall may end up being a decent nose guard, but he's a little undersized. That's what they might really miss.
Well, and I tell you what, I think Rashard Lawrence is a guy. He's going to be the Arden Key of this year.
Okay.
You're going to see Rashard Lawrence on the field. That's a man, buddy. He's going to get in the rotation out of Neville High School. They'll find a place for him. Now, I don't know if they'll put him at nose tackle, but you know, if the big guy Gervonta Valentine gets in, you know,
that would help.
You know, that would help. But again, he's got enough people, things to choose from, people to plug in, that I don't think that's going to be a problem.
When you look at the transition from the 4-3 to the 3-4, I mean, look, Tiger fans are going to be freaked out a little bit because they're no used to seeing that same defense they've seen for maybe 25 years, that same type of defense. How's the team adjusting right now, in your opinion? When you talk to the team, I've heard they're very, very excited about Aranda's defense. How are they adjusting?
I think they are. You know, players are always kind of excited when you get a new defensive coordinator. But I do think Aranda really went slow during the spring, and I think he's going to start showing more of the blitzes and packages, so forth. So right now, the players, they're not confused, okay, which is a good thing. But I think the players really welcome it because they like the different coverages and they like the blitz packages because they kind of got away from blitzes from all areas, like Saban used to do, and like Chavis did for a while too. They got away from that, so I think you'll see some more of that.
You mentioned a couple times Beckwith and White's coming back. Renee, I'm going to take you first. Talk about some newcomers on this defensive side of the ball that can make an impact, young players that are coming and make an impact this year, whether they were on the roster last year and didn't get a lot of playing time, or guys that are coming in as freshmen.
Rashard Lawrence. I think you'll see a much improved Dante Jackson. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how Duke Riley steps up. And, you know, Debo Jones last year.
Devin White?
Devin White, my gosh, yeah,
linebacker.
him. Yeah, I've seen him. Thank you. And
Divinity?
What's that?
Is it Michael Divinity?
Michael.
No. Michael Divinity.
Michael Divinity,
right.
yeah, he's got a chance because with the 3-4, he's going to get on the field, and he's got a lot of skills. Devin White has really, really made some tremendous strides. But I think, you know, defensive backfield, you're going to see some guys. Christian Fulton is going to see the field, and he's going to be a really, really good player in the SEC out of Rummel High School. But, you know, I just think that the defense is just loaded right now, and it's got a lot of depth, and there's not much drop-off athletically from if somebody goes down. And you're going to have 8 to 10 options, defensive line that Joe Ed Orgeron is going to be able to rotate those people in.
What can you add in terms of young players?
Well, I was going to say this. The numbers that Aranda put up at Wisconsin, he had some of the best statistical defenses for years, and he told us after the spring game that he's got much more speed. You know, so and Chavis really said the same thing when he came to LSU. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Right. You mentioned Beckwith and White a couple times. I think it was one of the real bright spots for Tiger fans when they heard that a lot of these juniors were coming back, and of course those two guys will be anchors on the defensive side of the ball.
Sure, and you know, Tre'Davious White, I mean, he really could have gone.
Yes.
And Kendall Beckwith, you know, who knows how he could have raised his stock had he gone, such as the other linebacker really raised his stock, who the outside linebacker who left this past season.
Jones.
Senior.
Debo Jones.
Yeah, exactly. You know, as Kendall was laughing about that, you know, maybe I should have gone. I'm looking forward to Jamal Adams.
Jamal Adams is
he
going to
needs to have a better year.
And on the flip side, Ethan Posick, that is a coach on the field.
Right.
And every offensive lineman will tell you having him come back is huge because he can get the guys lined up. He is a coach a coach on the field, great locker room presence. He's going to be good, and I'm tell you what, the guys, offensive linemen, look up to him, and him and Jeff Grimes have a very close relationship.
And Kevin Tolliver, the cornerback, who was thrown into the fire last year as a freshman, should be good.
Right. Stay with the offensive line. How good can this offensive line be this year?
You know, Toby Weathersby is very skilled. Tuma is moving out to tackle. That's going to be interesting. He's a mauler. Tuma has been a mauler at guard. I think he can be good. Will Clapp and Butte attack at guard or Brumfield. But I think that offensive line is good. It can be very good. It depends how they mesh, and the thing is too, you have a little depth there too, which is huge because you got to have guys come in there. Guy has a little tweak something and he's got to come off the field, heat issue, whatever it may be. So I think they have some depth that they can bring in, and that is another thing. So I think they go 8 to 10 deep.
Glenn?
Well, Posick and Clapp, I think, are key. Les said a lot of good things about Weathersby during camp, and that's really Les's area. When you think about it, they've never really had a bad offensive line since Les Miles has been there, and he seems to have a lot of confidence in some guys who haven't played a lot. So I think there's some question marks there, but they have enough veterans coming back, particularly Posick and Clapp, that they should be pretty good, but probably not quite as good as the last couple of years through the first half of the season.
How do they utilize Leonard Fournette this year? Will we see more of his skill set being utilized going forward?
I tell you, I think and I believe they will use him less between the tackles. Maybe, as a weapon, as a receiver. Because that pounding between the tackles takes its toll.
And he was underutilized as a receiver because he can catch the football.
He can catch the ball very well.
Yes.
He can either get, in a little, and not only in the flat, but he can get as a short receiver, beyond the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I just, that's something that's kind of aggravating because I remember going way back when LSU had Dalton Hilliard. They were always throwing it to him when he was by himself, isolated. And I just love to see Fournette and Darius Geis in that situation, and they just haven't done that enough. Screen passes, little passes in the flat, and let them run.
Obviously, he'd been anointed a Heisman winner since he took a step on campus. I think that maybe the programs let him down a little bit over the last couple of years in terms of winning Heisman, especially last year. Guys, legitimate? I mean, obviously he's a legitimate candidate. When you look at the other players that are out there being mentioned in the Heisman conversation right now, some are saying Leonard's maybe second or third. What do you guys think? I mean, we've got a little bit of bias here. There's no doubt about it. Watching this kid from St. Aug to LSU, but my gosh, if they can give him the opportunity to be successful at LSU, I think he's the best player in college football.
Well, I don't think there's ever been a player who looked like the Heisman winner more late in a season that didn't win it in some time.
Great
because
point.
I mean, when you got into November before the Bama game, and by the way, Harris was second in the SEC in passing efficiency going into the Alabama game. Everything was clicking, and then it just went to nothing. So the key is for them to have a similar start to what they had last year, and if Fournette has the same kind of numbers and they can beat Alabama, or if not beat Alabama, win the rest of the games, then he'll probably win it. But the key is beating Alabama, and then everything else will happen. The Heisman, the Final Four.
Deshaun Watson and Christian McCaffrey.
I know.
I mean, they are, just a few weeks away from the season here, and they both have a lot of hype, and they're going in with a running start as well. And Deshaun Watson, he was in a big show last year. Christian McCaffrey, he can do a lot of things. He's not just a ball carrier, he's a special teams dynamo. So that's going to mean a lot. TV exposure, how much they get, exposure TV, primetime games. You know, when Leonard's in prime time, it's going to be important for a win or maybe a 200-plus game.
Yes.
Things like that.
It's probably almost good that he doesn't go in as the number 1 or 2 guy. He can kind of go in as an also-ran and build as the season goes.
Expectations are tough.
Well, they do have some depth in that offensive backfield. Glenn, if you would take that first, talk about how deep they are and who could really see some significant playing time outside of Fournette this year.
Well, Darius Geis, who just probably actually told me during spring that he took it upon himself to keep Les Miles' job in the Texas A&M game, and he really almost single-handedly did, in a way. I think you're going to see more of him. They kind of used him in bits and pieces last year, but he's just, I think, a perfect complement to Leonard. You know, he's kind of wild and herky-jerky. And, Darrell Williams is very good. I don't know if you got enough footballs for him, but after Leonard and Geis, I think that's going to be it.
Darrell Williams is, in any other offense, he could be 700-800 yard rusher.
Right, huh?
Yeah, for sure. And he's, I remember talking to him when he committed to LSU, and I was kind of joking with him a little bit and saying, you know, what's going to happen with you and Leonard Fournette? He said, Leonard's going to have to we're going to have to just work it out. You know, so he just knows, like every good back,
right?
You know, like I tell you what, just like when Cecil Collins went to LSU, you know, Kevin Falk didn't scare him away.
Right.
And the same thing with Darrell Williams. The good players are not scared away, and the good coaches don't want the guys that if they come there, like, you know, if a recruit says, well, who you got in my position? It kind of makes you wonder if I want this kind of player.
Right.
Darrell Williams is going to embrace competition.
You know, guys, I hear this all the time. I know you guys hear it all the time as well. How does LSU get these great wide receivers to come play at LSU when they have so many problems at the quarterback position? Renee, I'll take you first. Man, they have a plethora of guys that can catch the football. Guys are going to be playing on Sunday at the wide receiver corps, but yet they struggle at the quarterback position. Kind of break that down for us.
Boy, they got some big receivers this year, 6'5", 6'6", 200, 220, and stuff like that.
Bigger receivers than they
Big
have.
receivers,
They
buddy.
keep recruiting them, man.
But
I think, excuse me, I think maybe there's just a lot of receivers in the country. I mean, there's just more receivers to choose from because everybody wants to be either a quarterback or receiver.
Yes.
I think that's part of it. But it's also, and there's a lot of them in Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
Louisiana is the king of the skill positions, DBs, receivers. And Les is a great recruiter. I mean, if Les would have got fired last year, he might have been the first coach ever fired with the #1 recruiting class in the nation at that point. And it finished like in the top 5, but he's a great recruiter. That's how he does it. Maybe he doesn't show him film.
Right.
But you know, the thing is, and now it comes to mind, Stephen Sullivan is a big kid, 6'5", 220, 230. But the thing is, you know, I guess a lot of people don't understand, you do not have to throw the ball 50, 60 yards down the field. A wide receiver, just Tyron Johnson out of Warren Easton, #1 receiver, just get me in space. You know, Malachi Dupree, Traven Durrell, you can get me in space, do a 10-yard slant, and just get me the ball and let me take it to the house. So, you know, you don't have to throw the ball 50 yards downfield to these guys. Get them in space. Just give me in a few plays. It may be a bubble screen. It could be a slant. It could be anything. But just get me the ball. So, again, you don't need a great quarterback to get the ball to throw the ball 10 yards. Just a little accuracy and a little patience.
Glenn, anything you can add about the wide receiver corps?
Well, it's funny with watching the Saints so much. Their receivers really don't have to get open. You know, Drew Brees likes to say, "I'll throw you open." Well, LSU can't do that.
Right.
Their receivers have to get open.
Right.
And you know, the history of LSU's quarterbacks, for the most part, they have to get open. So thank goodness they're able to keep recruiting these good receivers and the big ones. So hopefully they can get open and help Brandon, as opposed to Drew. Kind of, I've always thought, made the receivers look good.
Yes.
LSU's receivers got to make Brandon look good.
Take the tight end position for us.
You know, Colin Jeter, he's good size. Morrow, the kid out of Jesuit here.
Yes.
And you got, you know, and those two guys are going to be the main two guys. You got Pettigrew, the kid out of St. Augustine. You know, he signed this year. I saw him before. He, you know, when he signed, he's grown to 6'7". He's about 235, 240. So these tight ends for LSU are all 6'5", 6'6", or 6'7". They big targets. Again, they don't go to him too much. Washington, the receiver, the tight end, and there's another guy I'm drawing a blank, Deshaun Smith.
Right.
Okay, so you got a lot of guys, a lot of options, and there's a lot of skill there. These guys, they don't expect the ball, they don't need it. Jeter, example, he'll be playing on Sundays. Foster Moreau bulked up to 265, and he just loves to block. They want to be on the field, they want to win. These tight ends that LSU has, they're blessed with, don't feel like they need to catch 6 passes every game.
Right.
Well, I mean, LSU really hasn't thrown to the tight end since Gary Croton in 2007.
Right.
And sometimes they need to, huh?
Yeah. But you know, when you're already struggling to get the ball to the wide receivers, you're not going to get many to the tight end. But to me, throwing to the backs and the tight ends, it just makes it easier on the quarterback.
Yes.
You know, and so again, it's the coach's game. The coaches need to be the field generals and give Brandon a better playbook, I believe.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot, guys. Les Miles on the hot seat last year, on the hot seat now going into this year. Is he safe if he gets to the Final Four? Is he safe is he not safe if he doesn't get to the Final Four? Does he have to win a national championship? Glenn, I'll take you first.
Oh, if he gets to the Final Four, I think he's safe, because that would mean he either won the SEC or came real close and tied the team that did or something, you know. So, yeah, but he needs to have one of those type seasons of, you know, like a loss or 2 only, and you know, maybe if he gets 3 and he finishes strong, or you know, maybe. But he needs to have one of those seasons. At least that's what it looks like, because you know, the board and Joe Oliva, and there's still plenty of people on the board who are upset that he did keep his job. But then at the same time, he's gained a lot of power. He's more powerful at this time now than he was at this time last year, and he had kind of a so-so season. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I just hope that he has the kind of season that they keep him, because then he might just say, "Oh, the hell with all y'all."
Right. How about you, Renee? What are your thoughts?
Nobody gets hurt. He had, with the skill they have, and Dave Aranda's arrival and stuff, they have the potential of a 10-2, 11-1 season. They really, really do.
Okay.
If he finishes 9-3, again, injuries aside, you know, Leonard Fournette goes down, Brandon Harris goes down. He finishes 8-4, 9-3. Boy, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
8-4. I would.
Yeah, and again,
and
again, you don't know if a Fournette were to get hurt, or an Ethan Posick, or they got to plug somebody in at a key position. You know, that could make a major difference. And injuries are part of the game. You know, he could, if he went 9-3 with a mulligan because something happened, I don't know. But if he goes less than 10-2 with the team he has here, it's going to be a hot seat.
Guys, do you think that after everything that went down last year, that he is going to get a mulligan? I mean, when you've got the board of supervisors that are ready to run you out of the town on the rail, and the only thing that really stops them is the perception of firing a coach and having to pay a buyout when basically you're shutting down part of your institution, when you can't pay professors, when the buildings are falling apart. I mean, King Alexander was very, very clear on the perception of what was going on at LSU. I don't know if he doesn't make it to the Final Four this year, if he can get that reprieve, even a mulligan if somebody goes down like that.
Well, you know, and again, we don't know if somebody would get hurt. Certainly, if they heading for an 8-4 year and 9-3, the results, again, don't tell me how rough the waters were. Did you get the ship in?
There you go.
I think that's going to be, you're going to have some guys who want to get rid of him and stuff like that. You know, you signed Aranda, just brought him aboard. You got Cam Cameron on board and stuff like this. It's kind of interesting. I mean, they have laid the groundwork for long range.
And look, they've recruited some great classes.
Oh, yeah.
They got some really good young players.
It would be an attractive job for a new coach, for sure. And you know, the way it went down last year, they were kind of running out of time to get a new coach, and I think that was part of the thing that stopped it from happening. And the amazing thing was Joe Oliva wanted to fire Les Miles. I think we can all say that.
Yes.
And the main thing that stopped him was this buyout, which he is responsible for. He's the reason that Les has such a large buyout. So he screwed himself, basically.
Well, sidebar here, remember, the flirtation with Jimbo Fisher didn't make Florida State run to him and say, hey, we want to extend you. He's still sitting there with the same contract, and everything I heard.
No, he got an extension.
Did he
last
really?
year.
Did he? Got an extension the year before, though.
They re-upped him in some way last year
they changed
amid all
something. I
that.
don't
They
remember
made
what.
an announcement to kind of say, that he's staying, but contracts in college football.
No, because
I mean,
again, from what I understood, he was very, very interested in the LSU job.
and he will be again, and if they can get Jimbo, that would just be a great move. But some of these other coaching hires, I think you're much better off with less than, say, with Will Muschamp or Kirby Smart.
Oh, that's no doubt.
Oh,
come
yeah.
on. You might as well. Look, we talked about it. All three of us talked about it on this show and the radio show. He wouldn't have been unemployed long.
No, not
Okay?
at all.
Les Miles would not have been
No,
unemployed long.
I don't think so.
If you let it.
24 hours.
So, I mean, you pick your poison there. If you're going to bring somebody in, you better make sure you're bringing in somebody that's better than the guy you're letting go.
Exactly. And LSU has usually not been in a situation like that, because in the other coaches they fired, they could easily have gotten somebody better than.
You don't want to do another curly shuffle,
No, you don't. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports each and every Thursday night right here on WLE at 6 p.m. Our rebroadcast every Friday night at 10 p.m. on WLE and statewide on Pelican Sports Television, 9 o'clock on Friday nights. Renee Nato of SportsNola.com, also Glenn Guilbeau of Gannett News are our guests tonight. We're going to come back. We're going to shift gears from LSU. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the other state schools. We'll talk about the SEC and our college football preview right here on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by.
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Know what?
What?
Since I got adopted, I've learned a lot about these humans.
I know. I mean, check out these two. It's Flirt City over here.
Yeah, I noticed that. It looks like my human is definitely into your human.
Oh, look! I think she's getting his number.
Nice.
Your human's got some sweet moves.
Takes after his dog. Oh, look, they're doing that thing where they put their arms around each other.
She kicked up a leg. It's like in the movies.
That's awesome. Looks like we're going to be hanging out a little bit more.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Renee Nato and Glenn Guilbeau are our guests tonight as we talk a little bit about college football. Shifting gears from the LSU Tigers, who have national championship aspirations, to the Tulane Green Wave with a brand new coach and a brand new attitude out at Tulane as well. Going to be a tall task for Coach Willie Fritz. But Renee, I'll take you first. Not many times do you see a program promoting their coach instead of maybe the team or the player. But that's exactly what Tulane's doing. Troy Dannon has brought in Coach Willie Fritz, who has been successful everywhere he's been. But we don't really know a lot about what he wants to do this year. I mean, it's really been kind of secretive up to this point. First of all, your thoughts on the hire?
Well, he's won everywhere he has been. I'll say that. He's won almost 70% of wherever he's been, Georgia Southern and Sam Houston and everywhere else he's done that. But his deal is the read option. And he is, come hella high water, it's going to be the offense of the Tulane Green Wave. And it's kind of good. Although he's going to use it, he's going to make his players, whatever he's got, now there's going to be some carryover. But if it's run well, that read option that he's going to employ, as you know, the Georgia Tech and the Air Force, those offenses are hard to defend. Mm-hmm. So that's going to give him a little time and stuff, but it's got to be done well. He is not deep talent-wise, and he's not deep with depth. His defense isn't bad. Tanzel Smart, mm-hmm. defensive tackle, is a Sunday kind of guy. He'll play on Sunday. Sean Taylor, the other defensive tackle. He's got Nico Marley, the linebacker kid, and his defensive secondary is good. His defense is going to be an asset to his offense. But that offense he's going to run, it may be run by a true freshman, and boy, not a lot of good things happen when you got a true freshman as a trigger man.
Right. What are your thoughts on the hire?
Well, I think you just got to be patient with him. I mean, he's a proven winner. He hasn't won overnight really at any of his spots. I mean, and I think that the read option, that's perfect for the recruiting base that Tulane should have. You know, that's going to be able to attract some people, but you know, it's going to take a while. I mean, Tulane has never been good for very long, even when they do have a good season. So he's the kind of guy, though. I think he's got the pedigree, but he's going to need some time. I mean, you're going to have to withstand some losing seasons and keep him.
Unlike younger coaches who may be looking elsewhere if they get successful, this probably is going to be his last job, right?
Well, this was a big step for him, and he was really glad. I mean, it was a jump in salary for him. I think he realized that recruiting is good around here,
right?
And there's no big footsteps to step into.
Sure.
He's not going to have to step into a job where a guy won 10 wins the year before, so he can set the pace. It's going to be a situation where it's going to be baby steps for the Green Wave fans. I'm talking about, unfortunately, 2 or 3 wins is realistic. But he knows he has a plan, and he knows he's going to follow that plan, and he knows it's a big task at hand. That his offensive line is not very good, and that's where everything starts. And right now, and he has got no depth. He's got really 2 offensive linemen that are worthy of playing at that level in that conference.
You know, I'm going to stay with you for a second here, Renee. You do a recruiting show with our friend Coach Rick Gailey on WHNO TV, and Glenn, you mentioned it. I think the offensive scheme that he is running, even though they've had some problems right now in terms of recruiting in Louisiana because of the changeover in the coaching staff, after these guys kind of get their feet wet in Louisiana, it's going to be a perfect offense for a lot of the players that are coming out of Louisiana high schools.
Well, you know, a lot of people talked about this, but Lindsey Scott, who went to LSU, would have been a perfect fit at Tulane. But, you know, who knows what happened at LSU. It may be a great fit there as well. But the thing is that he's got a freshman, Darius Bradwell, that is a freshman, and he's competing with Glenn Coulier out of Mandeville High School on the North Shore. And as they go, that offense is going to go. And again, the offensive line is not real deep, and it's not real talented. They got a bevy of really good, outstanding running backs, Beatty out of Curtis, Dontrell Hilliard out of Scotlandville. And so they got some good running backs, but they have to find their own holes. It's going to really depend on the skill of those guys. You're going to have to use a little deception and a little trickery, if you will, to do something offensively, because to run right at people like that, even with the read option, they are not skilled enough. And the good read option also takes a little pressure off the offensive lineman. You know, there's a little different blocking. It's not coming off the ball and just knocking you on your can. So, at quarterback, but you need a good trigger man, offensive running quarterback, and that's the biggest question mark right now.
Curtis Johnson had inroads into high school coaches in Louisiana even before he took the Tulane job. Willie Fritz is having to do that kind of on the run now. What are you hearing from high school coaches? The way to a kid in Louisiana is through the high school coach in a lot of cases. Are they making those inroads?
He hasn't knocked on a lot of doors, and he came in late in December, and a lot of coaches, I'm a little surprised. Now, he's got his own methods, but some coaches that I thought would get a visit from the new Tulane coach has not seen him early in the process. And I know he had to get through recruiting and fill some holes. A lot of people jumped ship. A lot of Tulane people, Tanner Lee left and went to Nebraska. So he had to kind of, plug some holes and stuff, plug the dike a little bit. But we'll see how this recruiting goes this year. And you're going to
Isn't he recruiting in Texas?
Oh, big time.
Well, you see, that's the thing that got the rift with Coach Miles, because he's got this Texas A&M connection for the satellite camps, and that probably makes sense for him, whether Les likes it or not. But I mean, if he can get players from Texas, and then eventually there's enough players there's probably too many colleges that play football in Louisiana, but you'd think there's enough players in Louisiana for a school in uptown New Orleans.
Yes.
But I'll say this: he is going against teams that he's playing against now. He's not beating the lesser level teams, if you will. He is competing. If he gets a guy now, if you look at the recruiting list, the Tulane players that's being committed now are more so looking at schools that Tulane is competing with, and that didn't always happen in the past.
Guys, let's shift gears to the SEC. Glenn, I'll take you first. How strong is this conference this year? We know they've lost a lot of quarterbacks. There's a dearth there. But how strong can they be? Break down the East and West for us. Who do you think will come out on top?
Well, the East, Tennessee is being spoken of as a favorite. I don't know. The East just does not look too strong. You got a new coach at Georgia, a new coach at South Carolina. I would think Florida is the favorite there.
McElwain.
With McElwain. Now, the West, you know, it seems like I've been saying for a few years now, Alabama's not going to be as good as they were
Right.
the year before, but you know, that didn't happen last year. But they're due for an off year. I mean, they lose most of their defense, and they lose some key players. You know, they don't really know who their quarterback is going to be. So you know, this is a great year for LSU to finally beat Alabama. Brandon Harris is probably one of the more experienced quarterbacks in the league. I think Auburn is probably going to be better in the West, but you know, it's got to start with LSU beating Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Break down the SEC for us.
In the East, with Joshua Dobbs, a quarterback at Tennessee, man, he certainly is going to be a big reason for the Volunteers' success. Florida, McElwain, he's going to have to replace, you know, he's the quarterback situation, and he don't have all the pieces he wants right now. He's got a good defense. Georgia, it can be a bit of a surprise. I think it can be a bit of a surprise. South Carolina, you know, I don't know. That's going to be a tough. It could be it looks like a 6-6 kind of team. On the West, Ole Miss is a team certainly can. You know, they've lost a lot though.
Right.
They've lost a lot,
Yes.
so they're going to have to fill some holes. And Ole Miss is not where they were last year. Chad Kelly, obviously the quarterback, but he doesn't have the weapons around him that he's had. The offensive line is going to be a big step down. Mississippi State, that's almost a team that can surprise you. No one's giving them much respect, and they can step up and bite you. And that's a game that LSU could have trouble with. I'm just using or Alabama,
Right.
a team that nobody gives much respect to. For some reason, Mississippi State is capable every year of a big game, a big effort, upsetting LSU, upsetting Alabama, and I can see it again this year.
Right. Compare this year's SEC to SECs of the past in terms of the strength of the conference.
Well, I think this year it's probably a little off because I think Alabama has lost a lot. Ole Miss, which has beaten Alabama 2 years in a row now, which is kind of amazing. I don't think they're going to be there. You know, Mississippi State was very good 2 years ago. I don't think they're quite there. To me, it seems like more of an off year. You got new coaches at South Carolina and Georgia. You know, Kirby Smart's got a much better team than Will Muschamp has at South Carolina, and McElwain is in his second season at Florida, but you know he was okay last year. So and you know Arkansas looks about the same. You know they look maybe 7 or 8 wins. I don't see much better out of them. So to me it looks kind of like an off year in the league, and it's the year for LSU
Right.
to finally get out of that 3-loss realm. And that's what Marcus Spears said at the SEC meetings in Destin. He said, if not this year, when?
Right.
For LSU.
Watch out for Arkansas and Texas A&M.
Okay.
That's two we didn't mention either.
Right.
Texas A&M is talented.
Overall strength of the conference compared to maybe years past.
Yeah, I agree with Glenn. They're not as strong as they were in the past. And
Is that because the quarterbacks? Is that the main reason, or just overall talent?
I'd say overall talent with
Okay.
quarterbacks is certainly, you got some unknowns stepping in this year. Dak Prescott's gone. I mean, you got some guys that were there for a little while. Kelly's back at Ole Miss. You know, Auburn. I mean, Auburn and Arkansas too. But in the Texas A&M situation. But anyway, yeah, they're just not as high. But certainly you'll see an SEC representative in a Final Four. I would be extremely surprised if there's not somebody from the SEC in that Final Four.
Well, one thing you've had in the SEC too is 2 coaches that really looked like they were going to set the world on fire just a couple of years ago have kind of fizzled. Gus Malzahn, who may be better this year, and Kevin Sumlin. You know, they've had all kind of issues, and really Brett Bielema's only been okay. You know, so
Is that recruiting?
it's probably recruiting at Arkansas. I don't think it is at Texas A&M
Right.
and Auburn.
Right.
It's just, you know, it's a tough league, you know, and sometimes these young coaches, they look good at first, but in the end, it's Nick and Les.
Yeah. Get the book on them, and all of a sudden they become ordinary.
Right.
It's like
exactly.
It's like facing a pitcher for the
Right.
first time.
That's
then
true.
you face him the second
Right.
go around.
Yep.
You know, I know he's going to come with a fastball.
Yes. I'll take you first, Renee. The top teams in the country this year, who do you think they are?
Oh, Clemson's obviously up there. You know, I don't know who would be a surprise team, but I tell you what, best team, I don't know if they'd be a best team, but look at a meteoric rise that the Houston Cougars, I mean, have made. Well, will they be in a Final Four? I don't know. I don't think so. But I'm saying is that you always got teams like that.
Right.
But Clemson is certainly a team. Alabama's going to be up there. You know, Oklahoma. You know, it's going to be interesting to see. Michigan State was up there last year, and they're going to take a step back. But Ohio State obviously has to be there, and I can see Michigan surprising some people. I really can. I just think that he's been loading the train.
About Harbaugh.
Yeah, Harbaugh, and I think he's been loading the train, and he may surprise some people. They may be a little better than, I don't know what everybody thinks they're going to finish up, but I can see him coming up and really striking some people.
How about you, Glenn?
Yeah, I see Ohio State, Clemson again, and if Harbaugh can get away from the satellite camps and actually coach, no, but I think, I mean, he had a pretty good first season. I think Michigan might be closer to the not quite Final Four this year, but they'll be getting closer.
You've mentioned satellite camps at least twice. Okay, and I want to make this at least a semi-topic here on the show. For those that don't understand what it is and the controversy behind it, if you would take it first and then Renee piggyback on it.
Well, it started really as a smart idea by Jim Harbaugh, who's really just a brilliant guy, and he knows how to get under people's skin, and he's kind of a pioneer. He really started it because the players in Michigan aren't the same players you can get in Florida and California. So he started holding these camps around the country last year to kind of improve his brand, to see players, for players to see him. And then everybody kind of got worried about it. He expanded his camps. At first, the NCAA or the SEC, you thought they would rule against it. They did. Then they ruled for it. And then that just opened up a Pandora's box. So the other schools, or some of them are reluctantly getting in it, like Coach Saban. Miles has kind of embraced it more, though he really doesn't like it. He's just kind of doing it because he thinks he needs to, at least for this year. So it's turned into this summer thing where more coaches are trying to have these camps around their recruiting base and maybe a little outside, like LSU's going to Houston, to really compete with one guy, Jim Harbaugh. And it's kind of amazing because even Brady Hoke, when he was the Michigan coach, before satellite camps, he had a number 7 recruiting class and a number 2 recruiting class. So I don't know if it's really needed. It's kind of strange.
Glenn? I'm sorry, Renee?
You know, and the thing is, I can't add much to that except it's helped, you know, in LSU's case, it's helped some of the other schools in Louisiana who don't compete in the SEC, who play at a smaller level, and less, and the coaches may get a gem or two out of the Louisiana camps or whatever, but there's some other schools in there that can get the droppings or whatever it may be, and it can benefit their camp. But, you know, it's made people like Nick Saban and other people do things they didn't really want to do, and that's...
How about NCAA regulations? Are there, or do you see any coming down the pike here?
Well, I was just at the SEC spring meetings in Destin, and Coach Saban explained it as just a mess. He compared it to AAU basketball because there'll be so many handlers and so many guys. Who's that? You know, he called them Andy Cat, or what, I don't know what he meant by that, a West Virginia term, but it just opens the door for all these jock sniffers, if you will, or an entourage, like you have in basketball, to just hold some camp.
AAU has ruined college basketball.
Yeah. So I think Coach Saban has a good point there, but now he's also arguing from a position of strength because Alabama's he's had all these number 1 recruiting classes. But to answer your question, the NCAA is going to have to come up with some kind of regulations to govern the camps, because it is just a minefield of NCAA violations.
Renee, talk about some of the Louisiana schools out there, and if you could, maybe just go through a few of them and tell us what do you think about their season this year, how well they may perform.
Skip Holtz up at Louisiana Tech. He loses Jeff Driscoll. He loses Kenneth Dixon, who is a touchdown producer, and Vernon Butler, defensive tackle. There's 3 guys that had a lot to do with the Bulldogs' success. Louisiana Tech could still have a really good season, but it's going to be tough to match that. ULL looking for a quarterback. It's going to be, back-to-back-to-back. ULL 4 wins last year. That wasn't too good, 4-8. They have to, I think, back-to-back-to-back 9-win seasons. Mark Hudspeth it's going to be a tough challenge for him. In a Southland Conference, Southeastern 4 wins last year was below par. Ron Roberts, he loaded up and got some transfers and he's going to do. I think he's got a really, really good team. Watch Tim Rebowe at Nicholls State. Boy, they started to catch fire. I was fortunate enough to do some games, TV games with Nicholls State, and I could see them start to gain confidence as the season went on. And UL Monroe, I think they're a ways off. New coach situation. And so I think it's going to take a while to get where they like to be, and they also have Oklahoma and Auburn on their on their schedule, so it's going to be tough for you all, for the Warhawks, to win some games. But Southland Conference, I think Southeastern, Nichols, McNeese may take a step back, but Northwestern is another team. Jay Thomas, the head coach at Northwestern, he's getting the players that he wants, and I think the Demons will be much improved this year.
And a lot of those schools, obviously, the base is Louisiana players, right?
Exactly. And, a lot of those, you get a shot in the arm. Like basketball teams get a transfer. Those Southland schools, they'll take a disgruntled player, maybe second or third team on a team.
Southeastern just took the
Ooh,
Alabama.
Man, I tell you what,
Transfer.
they get a lot of guys, and Southeastern got a guy, Taylor Godboh, who was starting tackle a year or so ago at Miami. 6'8", about 300 pounds. He'll step right in there. And all the guys, Micah Eugene and Jordan Baptiste from Tulane at Southeastern.
Right.
So they got a lot of guys. So many guys that came from LSU transfers, and that's the beauty of the teams in Louisiana. So much talent that if you get somebody who's playing out of state sometimes and they want to come back home, this is a perfect fit.
Guys, I want to finish off talking about LSU's schedule. Glenn, I'll take you first. How difficult the schedule? I mean, obviously they open up Wisconsin at Lambeau Field. Talk about the schedule this year, and then ultimately what you think the record will be.
Well, Wisconsin, I'm thinking they'll probably get through that game. That's where Dave Aranda used to be. I don't think they quite have the talent level at LSU, but it is a tough season opener. After that, you got Southern Miss and South Alabama. Let's see, the non-conference schedule after Wisconsin does not look very difficult. They got Alabama at home. Florida will be better, but I think they're going to be, after the regular season, I think they'll be 11-1.
11-1. 11-1. You take the schedule. Tell me what you think.
The tail end is tough. You got Florida and Alabama. You got a week off there, but you got those teams back to back. You got Texas A&M at the end and Arkansas. That's going to be tough. And you become a survivor in the SEC, and LSU's schedule is really going to attest to them. If they can go 11-1. They will be in the Final Four.
Right.
I think a 10-2 is realistic. 11-1, something would have to happen.
Right.
They'd have to get a little luck. Or come up with a close game, or maybe Brandon Harris having a big game, or the defense stepping up big and stopping somebody in the red zone. But I mean, something big would have to happen for them to beat 11-1, but that's a possibility.
Right. And of course, opening up at Lambeau Field against Wisconsin, that's huge.
Yeah, and once again, a great market for Leonard Fournette to kick off his Heisman campaign. He had some games like that early last year, particularly the one at Syracuse. But that's going to be a great game for LSU fans, and that's going to be a rankings game. They'll get, if they win that game and look good doing it, they're going to get right into the mix.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And look, I love when they showcase those games early, when they play a tough opponent. I mean, they get enough cupcakes in the middle of the schedule, but I like to see a strong opponent to open up the season. Kind of gives you a little bit of a gauge on what the team is going to be. Renee Nato, Glenn Guilbeau, thanks so much for being with us here on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLE at 10 p.m. Also, Friday nights, Pelican Sports Television, 9 p.m. in the Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and New Orleans markets. You can catch me on the radio, 990 a.m. WGSO, weekdays, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. Don't forget, you can always listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. Every single episode of the award-winning Inside New Orleans Sports can be seen at ericasher.com as well. And check out the TuneIn Radio app. It's a free download for your smartphone or your tablet, and you can take WGSO Radio with you anywhere. Special thanks again to our guests, Renee Nato and also Glenn Guilbeau, also to the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Naila Jones, Christian Mader, and also William Hill. My name is Eric Asher. Thanks so much for watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll have another edition for you next week. Have a great evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.